Hello, I'm Tony Guida. This is my New York. 3 years ago, just after Christmas, a special light in our galaxy went dark. Princess Leia, aka Carrie Fisher, died. Many of the obituaries featured versions of the same theme. Fisher became famous and beloved for simply being herself. Brilliant, quirky, witty, actor, writer, and bipolar drug addict. A new biography, Carrie Fisher, A Life on the Edge, paints this complex woman in all her profundity. Its author, veteran journalist Sheila Weller, is here to chart Carrie Fisher's course from damsel not in distress to a woman who did much to destigmatize mental illness. Next. Sheila Weller, how nice to meet you.
Very nice to be here, Tony. Thanks.
Welcome, welcome. The Carrie Fisher family has disavowed your book.
I shouldn't be smiling.
No, listen.
It's not happy.
No, I'm sure you're not happy, but well, we'll talk about whether it's good publicity.
Oh, no. I'd rather not talk about it, actually.
Well, but I have to ask you.
Okay.
They say it's unauthorized, they didn't cooperate with it, they don't know you, and they even suggested that Carrie Fisher's friends and fans shouldn't buy the book.
That's their prerogative. I mean, I have nothing but respect for that family. I did reach out to them. That's all I'll say. And I was told nicely to reach out, come back and reach out later. I emailed them about 3 times, and then I had a contract, so I went ahead. And I'm used to doing books where you get people to talk, you research, you go after sources, and you try to tell a story as best you can. I have nothing but respect for the family.
And privately, you don't have a sense that the controversy this has caused might help sell books?
I don't.
And you didn't initiate it.
I did not initiate it, no. I'm not looking for, no, I don't know that it's selling books. I'm not looking at my Amazon numbers.
Okay.
Yeah. But really, I have respect for the family, and they went through a lot.
Yeah, they certainly did.
Yes, and
but you went through a lot to do this book, and you're saying that they didn't, you reached out and they didn't respond.
They didn't, yes, or they didn't, right. Sometimes that happens. It just does.
Yeah.
I've been in situations where that happens.
Let's talk about Carrie's writing. She wrote 7 books, and, brutally honest in all of them, candid. I wonder the fact that she laid out everything about her life, her loves, her drugs, her bipolar condition. There was nothing she didn't put out there. How much more difficult does that make a biographer's work?
People have asked me that question. I actually didn't think about that when I was doing it. You like to get people who knew this. That's what I do. You get people who knew the source, who knew your subject, very well, or even in a one-off that was significant. I have some people who went on book tours with her, who hosted her for events, who were Star Wars fans, who confided in her and saw her incredible generosity and her curiosity about their lives. Sort of, I don't want to say down and out, but people in the business who needed a helping hand, and she came in and supplied it. I got her acting coaches that I don't think people have spoken to before.
It's clear you talked to hundreds of people.
Well, over 100. 7 or 8 people at her London Drama School. People had not gone there before. So sometimes you just look for the people who can help you tell the story. And I didn't consciously think she said so much about herself. I thought that was a help in a way. It made her more interesting to me as a character. And there were things that she didn't exactly hide, but there were elements and shadows and echoes that her friends could provide and people who knew her could provide.
And they have provided them, and their book is chock full of them.
Yes, and they loved her. She was incredibly loved and sort of protected by these friends who adored her. She had more friends than just about anybody in Hollywood, and they were very significant. Helen Fielding, Salman Rushdie, Laurie Anderson, Meryl Streep, and people that you wouldn't know. I talked to 5 or 6 of her book editors. She had a wide swath of people in her life, and as one person said, it was a democracy. You had to have a certain sensibility. Salman Rushdie told me you had to be funny. I
don't think anyone was as spontaneously funny or witty in that crowd as she was.
I think you're right, and that's what was so charismatic about her from the beginning.
We're talking about her honesty and her candor, and it comes out in some of the quotes. I can do wrong better than anybody. I am mentally ill, she eventually said to Diane Sawyer on national television. But you raised the question in the book of whether the honesty might have been in some way a shield, a cover for something else, other truths. What do you mean by that?
One source said to me, she was honest and funny. You could talk to her on the phone for 7 or 8 hours. That is a sign of bipolar, and that's a very long phone conversation. But he thought the deepest truths she kept to herself. There was a darkness. You had a sense that there was a darkness that was deeper than her witty honesty. I mean, she was also, her former brother-in-law, Donovan Freeberg, who was a very good source for me, said she was a magnet, and she admitted later she was a magnet. She wanted to be a magnet, and he said, magnets die young. I thought that was quite perceptive. Later, she talked about Robin Williams' death in a way that you almost thought she could have been talking about her own. His vitality, his charisma, his life, and the point that magnets kind of want to be alone. Magnets enjoy the charisma, which they helped foment, but there's an element of sadness underneath it and loneliness underneath it. So I think that's what that meant.
There's so many complicated relationships in her life, starting with her family, her mother and father. There is a absolutely lovely, iconic photograph of, I think, 7-year-old Carrie backstage in Las Vegas when Mom is performing on stage. What do you think that picture tells us about that relationship?
Larry Schilder told me about it. He's told other people about it too. She was riding her bike back and forth in the hall in Las Vegas, which was kind of like her second home. And then he saw her peeking backstage at her mother. She said, I shared my mother with the world. I shared my mother with the audiences. I mean, my mother was very charismatic. She was beautiful. That was hard to share her with all those people. So that was part of it. As they grew older, I think one of the reasons she's so beloved by everybody from Star Wars fans to super, super serious feminists is that there's something about the mother-daughter relationship that hits so many nerves. There's a sort of codependency, to use that word. There's mutual respect. There was a period where she was kind of difficult with her mother. She didn't want to talk to her mother very much, and her mother was in a lot of pain. And her mother always sensed her complexity, always sensed that she was the complex child, and Todd Fisher was kind of the breezy, happy one who, became a tech wizard.
It seems that, as you say, mother-daughter relationships are always fraught, but this seemed to be particularly difficult. And I mean, she talks about, you have it in the book, that Carrie and her brother Todd, as children, were at home sitting on the stairs waiting for a parent to come put them to bed, and the parent never came.
One of her friends, Selina Cadell, her friend from drama school in London, said that Carrie asked her, did your mother ever put you to sleep? And Selina came from a show business family as well. Her father was a significant agent, I believe, or manager in England. She was very taken by that. And Carrie may have been...
That Selina said her mother or father...
Her mother never put her to bed. She would sit on the stairs.
Selina's mother or father would put them to bed, read stories to them.
Right.
Yeah.
So Carrie did feel she was in a world, and her mother was in the studio system. She had to make a certain amount of pictures a year. Debbie Reynolds was incredibly hardworking, incredibly. She had some bad marriages that forced her to continue to be hardworking when she may not have wanted to be, but she had that work ethic. She came from a very poor family in El Paso, Texas. She had a remarkable work ethic, and as Carrie got older, she respected that all the more, and she adopted it herself. And to have that kind of work ethic, which Carrie had, despite the challenges of bipolar disorder, an inherited drug addiction from her father, which is a disease, which it's hard for us to think of it as a disease because some people are judgmental about it. But despite all of that, she was a remarkably generous friend. She had more friends than just about anybody, and she worked endlessly. I found movies that nobody remembers, like Drop Dead Fred.
Right. Yeah,
there was some, in, like The Burbs.
There were some real stinkos in there. But Shampoo before Star Wars. You mentioned Dad, Eddie Fisher. That relationship is really weird. She says, I inherited the drug addiction.
Right.
What did she say about him? This is Carrie Fisher talking about her father. He shot speed 13 years, then was a pill addict. I am too. But there was a couple of inappropriate sexual advances that she talks about. She says, or told somebody, that he approached her sexually when she was 13.
It was subtle. It was kind of like, you have a good body or something. And she did tell, I believe, her acting teacher that was, she interpreted that as a sexual come-on. But it was an inappropriate remark.
Well, what about the? Oh, certainly.
Yes.
What about the night before her wedding to Paul Simon? He calls her, or he leaves a phone message saying, "You have a great ass. You should be marrying me instead."
Yeah, she told that to Ted Kennedy at a dinner when she was in Washington, when she was fixed up with Christopher Dodd.
Yeah, Senator Dodd.
Senator Dodd.
Of all people to tell us.
I know. Ted Kennedy was kind of very interested. Anyway, she did share that story, and it's a lot to get over. It's a lot to get over.
That's. But nonetheless, when he was on his, when he was broke and he was and he needed help, she was his guardian. He stayed in her place, the El Dorado.
Yes. He stayed in her place. That was right after Star Wars. Then toward the end of his life, she helped him a lot in Berkeley, was very nurturing there. I think I tried to make a character arc, this story into a character arc, because I think it is. She ended up, I think, her character was fulfilled. I mean, she ended up being a guardian to both of her parents with whom she'd had complicated relationships earlier. She could have been said in her 20s to have been kind of a spoiled Hollywood girl. That's one interpretation of being lavish, being witty, being privileged, becoming a star early from a Hollywood royalty family. But she ended up going through so much, both with her own challenges and seeing her parents freshly as they developed and went through their challenges. And she ended up kind of parenting her parents, respecting them, loving them, understanding what love was, and giving to them. And I think she really fulfilled her character toward the end of her life.
Let's talk about the character she's best known as, the role Princess Leia with the double bagel hairdo. Do you think she was really the first feminist action hero?
People have said that, so I use that. I'll go with that. I mean, I didn't, her personality came through in that role. She was chosen because there was a feistiness that came through. I mean, they originally wanted somebody more quote-unquote beautiful. I think that women, young girls who watched it certainly got that sense. Tina Fey did. I mean, we didn't call it feminist at the time. I mean, it was an incredible sci-fi movie that broke all boundaries of what a movie could be. But there was a sense of hauteur about her. She spoke with that English accent that she had acquired in London, and a sense of devilishness and wit that came through,
Well,
and she was a damsel not in distress.
Yeah, I used that in the introduction. She was, you got the sense out of Princess Leia. She wasn't taking any garbage from anybody, and she was in charge. She's 19 when that movie came out, when she made the movie. No, I think when it came out. I mean, 19 to have that worldwide fame. I can't imagine what it's like coping with that, but I want to jump ahead. I mean, she's doing drugs already, lots of them.
Not at 19, not quite.
21, I think.
I want to say she did Percodan. When you have bipolar, it was then called manic depression, and it's not diagnosed. You want to take what we now call opioids, and then at the time called painkillers, to manage your moods. So a lot of that was trying to manage a disorder that she had, which was not diagnosed, which was not understood. So I want to give some sympathy to the fact that she was doing that. I mean, not everybody, but certain people in the groovy crowds did cocaine at the time, and she did as well. So, some people could use it as a recreational drug, and certainly marijuana could use it as a quote-unquote recreational drug. These are terms that were used then, and now we look at them in a different way. She couldn't.
Right. And it was where I was trying to go is that the first time she was diagnosed as bipolar, she was 24, but she rejected it because she thought, oh, the doctors are just trying to tell me that because they want to make me feel better about being a drug addict.
Right. She did feel that way. First of all, it had just been called bipolar as opposed to manic depression. Some people thought, I mean, the name was changed because manic depression had a stigma to it, so that could have been one reason. And later she said that there was something that she resisted in the diagnosis for that reason. 4
years later, a major overdose where she could have died leads to her becoming a writer. And I'm interested that you used the quote from her that books were her first. She said, books were my first drug. Books.
She had great quotes, yes.
Books were my first drug. And she became an extraordinary writer. 7 books, all witty and lively.
The first one was really a breakout.
Postcards from the Edge, sure. And I don't think the audience may be aware of her evolving into, her writing was so good and so much respected that she became a very much in demand script doctor.
Somebody I posted something on Facebook, and somebody just said she was the great, and I think this person is in the industry, greatest script doctor in Hollywood, and a significant film critic said the same thing. She polished up a lot of movies. She came in and she said, "Make the women smarter and the love scenes better." That was her. That was her.
Yeah, that was her formula.
Motto. Yeah.
Say that again. Her formula.
Make the women smarter and the love scenes better.
Yeah. Can't say it any better.
Yeah. But she polished up a lot of movies.
Well, you have a lovely example in the book of her script doctoring, apparently for Spielberg's Peter Pan movie, Hook. And it's a scene where Tinkerbell and Peter Pan are talking, and this is how Carrie Fisher polished it into poetry.
You know that place between sleep and awake? That place where you still remember dreaming? That's where I'll always love you, Peter Pan. That's where I'll be waiting.
How much of her is in that?
Well, I wanted to name the book Between Sleep and Awake. That's how much I felt was profound and elegant in that line. So how much of her was in that? Between Sleep and Awake, I think, is the way she lived her life, between sanity and a bit of bedlam, between helping people extraordinarily in a way that they never forgot, and being unable to help herself in the biggest ways. So there were extremes in her life, between having so many friends you couldn't count them, people who consider her, their best friend, and having a loneliness at night that she couldn't solve, and having people sleep in her bed just for the company, calling friends and saying, I can't be alone. So there were great leaps between this charismatic, witty woman with sort of the Dorothy Parker of her time and place, and loneliness and terror, and the inability to deal with very strong demons. So I think Between Sleep and Awake shows the extremes that were part of this uniquely complex woman's life.
It'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Brian Lord. She never married him, but they were together.
Yeah, I'd rather not talk about him. He's very private.
Well, I just want to
happy relationship.
Yeah, I just want to talk for the audience to know who he was, and she said, or others, friends of hers said, he was the love of her life. They had the daughter, Billy, and then he left announcing that he's gay, and she felt she failed. And it's some people that the reason, that the reason for that breakup was her failure. Sort of the same thing she felt about Debbie and Eddie.
I don't think that she thought that marriage was her failure. Her parents.
But she caused the breakup, so as kids will do.
Right. It just shows her sensitivity. It just shows her sensitivity that the breakup was that painful to her. And of course her parents' breakup was as well. And you have flashbulbs popping at your mother and you when your father leaves both mother and daughter for a beautiful woman, who she of course later became good friends with, Elizabeth Taylor.
Yes.
But
that's remarkable.
Yeah.
How Elizabeth Taylor and Debbie Reynolds became good friends, good buddies, forgiving each other, and even with Carrie, good
Absolutely,
friends.
with Carrie, yes. Things come full circle,
Well, it's good that they do. I mean, it's hard to imagine in this circle that they did, but they did. I do want to bring up Billy only for a quote in your book. Talking of Billy, the daughter, Carrie said, maybe her dad, Brian Lord, maybe her dad makes her mother possible. What does that mean?
I think that was in one of her books.
Yeah?
I think that was in one of her books.
Okay.
I think that means the more stable parent, the more, the parent with more conventional and quote-unquote appropriate parental and domestic lifestyle makes a quirkier parent possible. There's room for this quirkier parent when you have that other influence. I think that's what she meant. And I think it was very elegantly put in her book.
We talked earlier, and you talked a little bit, but I think it bears further examination about her role in destigmatizing mental illness. Talk about that some. I mean, she went on. Who was it? Diane Sawyer on national television saying, "I am mentally ill."
I can say that. In December 2000, that was a real breakthrough. She'd had a psychotic break. She wrote about it in The Best Awful. She talked about it with Diane Sawyer, very frankly. And she talked about bipolar disorder, which had been, shrouded by shame, especially for women. I mean, men can get away with a lot of kind of quirky behavior, out of the box behavior more than women. And she destigmatized it. Women who had suffered from it came forward after her. Catherine Zeta-Jones, Jane Pauley, Demi Lovato. I have a whole list of them in the book.
Yes, you do.
So she made it okay, and now we see on TV ads for bipolar medication. We didn't see that before. We didn't know what it was, and we didn't know. And the people and I talked to a number of women who are people who have bipolar disorder. I don't want to say suffer. There's a lot.
It's a suffering.
Yeah, but there's a lot about it that's very appealing. Authorities said it's very rare to find someone who really would want to give it all up. Even Kay Redfield Jamison, who's the most distinguished authority on the subject, who has bipolar herself, has said, if I look back on my life, would I want to give it up? Words to this effect, no. Because the highs are very, very, very appealing.
And they feel it's a catalyst for creation, and a catalyst for so many
That's
good
true.
things.
Yes, and she did as well.
Yeah.
But that happens a lot. I think it's over 50% rejecting the meds, and there's a lot of side effects with medication. They can stop working. They work for one person and not the other. As we know about all kinds of medication, there can be a terrific medicine and then it's taken off the market because not enough people were getting the benefit from it. there are.
I think you have Richard Dreyfuss in
Yes,
the book saying Richard
saying
Dreyfuss, who also suffered
Yeah.
or suffers still from
Right.
this,
Saying that there
that he had found a great pill or whatever medication, and
Right.
then they took it away.
They took it away, yeah. So it's, and things can change on you, and medications that are terrific for one patient are not for another. So it's hard to get, and then you have multiple medications when you have that.
Yeah.
You have different medications.
I think we should mention that the magazine that she put her on the cover,
Yes.
that we, who had ever heard of this magazine?
Yes,
but
after-
they respected her so much for what she was doing.
And
Tell us.
she had such faith in them. She's a star. She was on, she's Princess Leia and other things. She was on Dinosaur saying, I'm mentally ill, I can say that. And then a woman named Joanne Doan, a entrepreneur who was starting a new magazine called BP, very niche, sophisticated
Bipolar. BP,
bipolar,
yeah.
yes, magazine for people with bipolar, the 6 million people that had it. Called her up out of the blue and said, first of all, was surprised that she could get her so easily, as many people are. And, and often Carrie would ask them about their lives, But she asked Carrie if she would possibly give an interview and agree to take a picture for her new magazine that hadn't even been published yet. And Carrie, to her delight and surprise, said yes. So she really wanted to share with an audience a magazine that she'd never seen, that hadn't been published before.
Yeah.
And I spoke to the person who interviewed her. I spoke to Joanne Doan. I spoke to other people involved. She did the same with Psychology Today. She was their cover girl. So she went right out and said, I'm going to, talk about this I'm going to put myself on
Yeah.
the line with this.
It's all in the book and much more. Sheila Weller,
Thank
thank
you.
you for being here.
Thank you, Tony.
The book is Carrie Fisher, A Life on the Edge by Sheila Weller. You should get it, and I'm so happy you were here,
Thank you, me too.
and I'm so happy you were here. We'll see you next time.